Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket from Rev TV. You'll get every game every Sunday afternoon in crystal clear HD. That's over 220 football games for the entire regular season. Plus, NFL Sunday Ticket gives you up to 8 live games on one screen with Game Mix. You'll get that died and woke up in football heaven experience when you include NFL Red Zone, a channel dedicated to every scoring play from every game and all your fantasy football teams. Get in the game with NFL Sunday Ticket. Call 601-8992 today.
A cabinet minister says the prime minister isn't talking out of his head when it comes to Baha Mar. NEMA begins restoration efforts following Hurricane Joaquin. A new study says some meats cause cancer. What does this mean locally? Plus, lawyers charged with obstructing justice. We've got those stories and a whole lot more coming up tonight. I'm Kyle Joaquin, and NB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to NB12. Agriculture Minister V. Alfred Gray has fired back at naysayers who question Prime Minister Perry Christie's optimism on Baha Mar, asserting, "We know what they don't know," and Christie is not talking out of his head. Gray says he shares Christie's optimism and fully expects him to solve the Baha Mar crisis in a few months. However, Gray admitted that in the unlikely event this issue drags on until the next general election, he will be disappointed. Vonnie Toot reports.
But I don't know that by the time election comes around in 2017, this will be an issue. I think it's going to be resolved, and as soon as it's resolved, people will be employed or re-employed, as the case might be. And so if this continues until 2017, I don't know what I'll say, but certainly I will be totally disappointed. And so let them keep their eyes on us. We have a plan. We're working that plan out, and I believe Baha Mar will be resolved in the next few months.
Gray said when Prime Minister Perry Christie declared that he is supremely confident Baha Mar will be complete and open for business, he wasn't talking out of his head, adding, "We know what they don't know." Christie said he remains optimistic about the future of the stalled multi-billion-dollar project, even after 2,000 Baha Mar employees were laid off. Gray says he shares the Prime Minister's optimism. He said those who are pessimistic about Christie's ability to solve the Baha Mar crisis will just have to wait and see.
We know what they don't know. And so I must say that the Prime Minister is not talking out of his head. Well, I am optimistic, just like the Prime Minister is, because we take our cue from him. He is in negotiation with these players. He knows what's going on. And I think the things that he has said to us gives us the same hope that he has. I think it's important for people to wait and see how it plays out, rather than criticize things about which they know very little or nothing.
On Monday, PLP MP Leslie Miller asserted that if the Christie administration cannot bring resolution to the stalled project soon, the PLP can expect defeat at the polls in the next general election. Meantime, Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner suggested that layoffs were a direct consequence of the Christie administration's reckless interference in the Baha Mar matter.
Well, Mr. Miller is entitled to his opinion. I think reasonable people think reasonably. Everybody knows the government is not responsible for the catastrophe which is presently ongoing with Baha Mar. The contract is between the construction company, the bank, and Baha Mar owners. The government just was invited to get involved in it, and the Prime Minister is again working overtime to ensure that Baha Mar opens in the shortest possible time. And those who are pessimistic about his optimism, well, just wait and see.
Gray also dismissed recent criticisms of government's handling of the Baha Mar crisis as utter stupidity.
Obviously, he must get involved. I mean, the country is going to be affected by the result of Baha Mar's position. And as leader of the country, it will be my view that he having been invited, he must stay involved until some resolution is had. But I don't think he should take responsibility for what's going on. And I think that's an unfair criticism of him, because I'm not a party. He's not a party to the thing. And people are talking about if the winding up had taken place overseas, we'd been better off. What stupidity.
Justice Ian Winder approved the government's application for the appointment of provisional liquidators on September 4th. The provisional liquidators have since laid off 2,000 workers. Attorney Wayne Monroe said the substantive hearing for the winding up petition for Baha Mar has been pushed to November 25th. Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Toot.
On the heels of the single largest redundancy exercise in recent memory, Labor Minister Shane Gibson says government is working to amend redundancy laws to ensure the protection of workers. He says it's a matter he has discussed with the National Tripartite Council.
I asked him to look at us improving our redundancy laws, which will give employees more benefit after having worked for these companies, in some cases 20 and 30 and 40 years, and then walking away with a maximum. I think the maximum number of years that can be used to determine a redundancy payment is right now is 12 years. And so we're looking at expanding that, either making it unlimited or increasing it significantly.
In a letter to employees on Thursday, Joint Provisional Liquidators said following a review of the financial affairs of the Baha Mar companies, it became clear that the companies could not afford to meet all operating costs, including existing staff levels. Gibson refused to speak to the termination of 2,000 Baha Mar employees specifically, insisting the Office of the Prime Minister is handling all inquiries. However, he said it is important to ensure that all workers who are made redundant get everything they deserve.
When you look at the way employees have been making employees redundant over the past couple of years in particular, and the little that they've been walking away with after putting in many years of service, I think it's something we need to reconsider.
Well, nearly 3 weeks since Hurricane Joaquin hit 6 family islands in the southern Bahamas and demolished hundreds of houses and businesses, Director at the National Emergency Management Agency, Captain Stephen Russell, says they are ready to proceed with restoration efforts. During a handover of supplies to NEMA today at Premier Imports, the NEMA director asserted that there is no time to waste in rebuilding those devastated islands to be better than they were before. Simone Davis reports.
Russell said they are working on an assessment to find out what is needed in the family islands in terms of building supplies and have started transporting those items to begin the restoration process.
The aim is to get these repairs, these material into the islands. The team from the National Repair and Reconstruction Unit, they were in the islands doing those door-to-door assessments, so we know exactly what each household needs. And the aim is to get the materials to those households, and we have the repair and reconstruction team work with those persons whose homes have been seriously impacted for the repair and repair at this time.
Last week, Prime Minister Perry Christie advised that nearly 900 homes were destroyed by the Category 5 storm. He noted that 123 homes were destroyed on Acklins, 50 on Crooked Island, 23 on Rum Cay, 277 on San Salvador, and 413 on Long Island. Russell said after reconstruction supplies are distributed to those islands, there would be another assessment to map out the no-build zones and find alternative ways to build the homes that were destroyed to avoid future disasters.
Later down, we'll move into a reconstruction phase where we really have to map out those homes that have to be reconstructed, knowing whether we're going to continue to build them in those areas or move them elsewhere. We're going to change the concept. We're going to put all those homes that we reconstruct now or rebuilt on pylons now instead of flat on the ground to take into consideration the surge or the wind that may come with future storms. So again, we're well on the way now. Once we get this material into the island, mesh it with the teams, distribute the material to the persons whose homes were impacted, and we can get our repair program underway in full force.
Thus far, NEMA has received donations from the Progressive Liberal Party, web shop companies, the Bahamas Public Service Union, Kelly's, and Church of God, amongst others. Russell said NEMA has accumulated about $170,000 to assist in relief efforts to those islands, and they are expecting to raise the same amount in the near future to help rebuild homes that were damaged on all islands.
This here, to the order of probably $160,000, $70,000 here with this organization. And one of the other organizations, we're looking at probably another $170,000 to start with the repair programs in the 6 or 7 islands.
He added that the relief efforts since the storm are going fairly well, as NEMA is operating by a system along with other relief teams to ensure proper distribution in those disaster areas. Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
The World Health Organization released a report on Monday linking processed meats like hot dogs, sausage, and bacon to cancer. placing them in the same cancer-causing category as asbestos and cigarettes for their danger. Our Paige McCartney spoke with a local oncologist who puts their risk in perspective for Bahamians.
For meat lovers, this recent announcement by the World Health Organization could be a big disappointment. But local physicians say, as with anything else, everything in moderation.
Processed meats are things like hot dogs, smoked meats, canned meats. Those are processed meats. And what they found was that processed meats definitely increase your risk of cancer of the colon. And they increase it by about 18%. But when we look at those figures, we have to be careful of how we read those, right? So people hear, oh my God, there's an 18% increase in my risk of cancer, but we have to understand what that 18% is.
Oncologist Dr. Devon Curling said, given that the general incidence of colon cancer in the population is 5%, an 18% increase in relative risk, as cautioned by the WHO, translates to a 1% increase in the absolute risk of developing colorectal cancer for Bahamians. And according to Curling, you would have to be consuming processed meats on a daily basis over the course of your life.
5 to 6 is an 18% increase, right? So get that figure clarified first. So when you look at it overall, you're actually looking at an absolute increased risk of 1%, okay? We're also looking at the amount that you have to eat. So if you eat about 50 grams of processed meat per day, that is what is going to increase your risk. So what is 50 grams? That's about a hot dog, okay? Right? So that's about the size that we're talking about. So that's what it takes to actually increase your risk.
The noted oncologist added that cultural biases have to be considered when determining the actual effects of the report's findings.
For instance, if I told the average Bahamian that if you eat conch every day, that it's going to increase your risk of a certain cancer by 1%, most Bahamians would say, well, you know what, I'll take that risk, okay? So we know that overall you have to eat a healthy and balanced meal.
Curling said that's where government steps in, implementing policies that make eating healthier food more affordable.
To actually eat healthy costs a lot of money. And this is where government and healthcare have to work together in terms of saying, do you know what? We need to identify healthy foods and say that we're not going to charge duty or customs or anything else on these items because we actually want people to be able to get them and we want people to be able to eat healthy. You go to the food store right now, the piece of meat with all the fat and all the nasty stuff on it is the one that most people can afford because it's cheap.
Another part of the study also focused on red meat and its link to cancer. Curling said, where the WHO reports that processed meats definitely increase the risk, red meat is only suspected to increase the risk. And further, the way you prepare red meat heavily influences how it produces and reacts with carcinogens. In short, he said, stay away from deep-fried and grilled red meat to lower your risks. But how does this new information affect the average Bahamian? Here's what a couple had to say.
No, it won't, because I don't believe that processed meat will cause cancer. No, I don't think so.
So you don't believe what the World Health Organization says?
You can die anyhow.
You might as well enjoy yourself, right?
Enjoy yourself.
Now you have to really pay special attention to the hot dog. But I don't eat meat. The only thing I do is eat is fish.
Okay.
So
it doesn't affect you?
No, it doesn't affect me, not really.
Reporting for MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.